Welcome to part 2 of the Stimulating Beverages lecture for plants, humans, and the environment. Part 1 looked at coffee, and part 2 we'll look at tea and cocoa. So the next stimulating beverage is tea. Tea comes from another tropical shrub, this one in the tea family, Theasia. The plant grown for tea consumption is Camellia sinensis. It is also an understory tropical evergreen, and if shade-grown, would have the similar environmental benefits as shade-grown coffee. There are several kinds of teas, ranging from white to red to black. The different types of teas, excluding herbal teas, all come from the same species of plant. The difference comes from the processing methods and parts of the plant that are used. For example, leaves or buds might be used, or the plant part might be fermented versus steamed. Dry tea has more caffeine by weight than coffee. Nevertheless, more dried coffee is used than dry tea in preparing the beverage, which means that a cup of brewed tea contains significantly less caffeine than a cup of coffee of the same size. Tea also has high antioxidant content. These are images of tea agriculture in Southeast Asia, where the plant is native and is often grown in extensive monocultures. The same issues with industrial agriculture pertain to tea production. There are poor working conditions, pesticides, fertilizers, environmental contamination, and habitat destruction. Although coffee is the most widely traded commodity, tea is the most popular drink in the world in terms of consumption. Its consumption equals all the other manufactured drinks in the world, including coffee, chocolate, soft drinks, and alcohol put together. So adopting sustainable growing practices could have a large impact. Cacao is the third plant we will talk about. It is also a tropical understory plant, and it is the source of chocolate. Scientific name, Theobroma cacao, means drink of the gods. Interestingly, the family name means dung or manure plants. The fruit is football-sized and hangs from the trunk, where the flowers are also located prior to fruit production. The chocolate is produced from the roasted seeds in a process similar to coffee processing. You can see the pulp-covered seeds in the image with broken open seed pods. Each pod has about 25 beans in it, which could produce a little more than an ounce of cocoa after processing. The image on the bottom left is cacao. The others are all species in the same family, grouped together by their similar and unique flower and fruit structure. Cacao production also overlaps areas of high biodiversity, and we can see in this map that the most concentrated cacao production is in West Africa, with sources also coming from Indonesia and Central and South Americas. Similarly to coffee and tea, the cacao plant is adapted to grow as an understory plant and could be cultivated under shade-grown conditions to minimize environmental problems. The original method of consumption was as a hot beverage, but it was prepared very differently from the modern version. It was not only served hot, but it also contained chili peppers, along with maize and vanilla, and it was very bitter. Most modern versions contain milk, sugar, cinnamon, and other ingredients, many of which are not even from the New World, and so could not have been consumed by the Mayans and Aztecs. Cacao was so valuable that it was used as a currency among wealthy Mayans and Aztecs. The first written recipe for hot chocolate already had ingredients that were not original. Milk was introduced later by the Swiss, but the Europeans initially sweetened it with a good amount of sugar. This is because cacao contains a large amount of alkaloids, which are plant chemicals that tend to be bitter to taste. Nonetheless, cacao was considered to be very good for health, and an aphrodisiac, also good for fertility and easing childbirth. Now this is a graph showing the relative antioxidant content of foods. Dark chocolate is at the top of the list, along with several berries and other fruits. Antioxidants make up more than 10% of the weight of dry, raw cacao beans. Aside from environmental problems, the major concern with chocolate or cacao production is a social justice issue. It has long been associated with slave and child labor. This image is from an expose written in Harper's Magazine nearly 100 years ago, where a journalist visited cacao plantations in Africa and found slave labor taking place. The same thing was exposed about a decade ago by the New York Times, which showed that child and slave labor are happening on many of the plantations that are owned by or sell cacao to the big companies of chocolate like Nestle, Hershey, Mars, and others. Because of the public outcry, the companies created the World Cocoa Foundation to help resolve the issues, but studies have found little changes taking place. It appears to be more for public image of the companies than for creating actual change. Groups that are working on this issue are the International Cocoa Initiative and Labor Rights International. Investigative reporting has recently drawn attention to the rampant slave trade in West Africa, particularly of children, associated with chocolate production. Consumers have the option to buy fair trade certified products if they are concerned about supporting child slavery or want to ensure that producers get fairly compensated. Fair trade certification labels can be found on products that are produced in less developed countries but are sold to consumers abroad. In the production of many products, including coffee, tea, and chocolate, the producers are often denied a living wage or any wage at all. For example, a pound of coffee may cost more than $10, but the small-scale coffee grower will only get compensated a few cents for that sale of that pound of coffee, while the companies whose label is on the coffee will receive large profits. In the case of chocolate, child slavery is also a major driver of the fair trade market, as consumers want to ensure that the chocolate they are purchasing does not support the trafficking and enslavement of children in West Africa. And that concludes part 2 of the Stimulating Beverages lecture.